Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. I haven't made a video in a while, and I just wanted to post an update in terms of what I've been doing and some things that have been helping me, and hopefully some of the tips and things that I've adjusted can help some people out there too. So, yeah, just wanted to make this a quick one, just to talk about those things. So first of all, I'm having a pretty good summer in terms of blood sugars and stability. I'll just show my screenshot real quick of where my clarity report is for the past 30 days. So you can see here, average glucose is 124. Standard deviation is an important number if you're not familiar with it. It just really relates to how stable your blood sugar is. Like I'm not having giant spikes or in either direction, either high or low. So that 21 is pretty good. I'm averaging anywhere from like, up to like 150, 160 and down to really around 100 or high 90s, but nothing too bad. You can see my time in range is very high. It's 98%, 1% high, 1% low. And this is very stable and it's very good. And it's also, I'm taking significantly less insulin than I have been previous to the past month. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. So I just wanted to really go over that. And that's one of the main focuses of this video. And so what did I change? A couple things. First thing I changed was some lifestyle things. So I've been doing a little bit more cardio than I was doing previously. I've always been a big exerciser, and I try to walk, my 10,000 steps every day. I go to the gym, I do strength training very consistently, probably 5 to 6 days a week. The one thing that I've added is more high intensity cardio in addition to the slower state cardio and the weight training. So for me, that's usually like a mile long run or maybe 1 mile run a couple different times during the day. So maybe one in the morning, and then one at night, along with my walking and my running. It could also be a series of sprints or a boxing workout or something that really, really gets my heart rate elevated for not super long, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. I noticed that when I have that really intense bout of cardio exercise, that my blood sugar is just way more stable. I require a ton less insulin for really up to 24 hours after I've completed that workout. And I also don't get giant spikes in either direction. So the addition of high intensity cardio in conjunction with slower state cardio and weight training has been a huge help. The other thing I've changed is really like the concept of inflammation. I think a lot of people are familiar with inflammation internally to the body and how it can cause all sorts of issues. And I've read a lot about how it can increase your insulin needs, or it can basically decrease your insulin sensitivity. And so I've really paid a lot of attention to that. And so there's a lot of different ways that I've changed that. So for example, I've been doing supplements with apple cider vinegar. So I'll take a shot of apple cider vinegar before I have a meal. I've been taking turmeric and curcumin. I've been doing flax oil, so basically healthy fats. I've been trying to sleep really like an hour more per night, and I think that's helped quite a bit too. The other thing that's kind of a funny, stupid little thing is I golf a lot. And what I realized is a lot of times when I golf, I was having a cigar, which is not the greatest thing in the world, but whatever, I was doing it. It was fun. But I started to read about like how even something like a once a week cigar or something like that can cause lots of internal inflammation. And so I've cut that out. The combined results of all these things have been pretty amazing. And so I was taking, typically before I made some of these lifestyle changes, I was doing about 35 units of insulin per day total. So that's basal and bolus. I'm on the Omnipod 5, of course. Since I've made these changes, I've been doing really only between like 25 and 27 units of insulin per day. And so that's almost, 10 units or 8 to 10 units less of insulin per day, just because of these very simple lifestyle changes. And so I'm taking less insulin, which means less highs and lows, which means like less I have to worry about as well. So I would really strongly recommend anybody that's having a problem with like stability, or even just total volume of insulin, to really look at the concept of insulin sensitivity, do some further reading about how you can optimize that. And then, like I said, play around with your exercise, your sleep, and even some of the supplements that you're taking to see if that can help. Now, the other thing more specific to the Omnipod 5 is I've made a couple of minor changes to my correction factor and my insulin to carb ratios. And so I'm just gonna open up my app, because the main setting that I was concerned about was nighttime. I eat a lot of protein, and so I was having a lot of nighttime like it would creep up and sort of hover in like the 160 to 170 range for many hours overnight. And that really can impact your daily average. And it also dramatically increases the amount of insulin you're receiving because the system is always trying to correct that. So it's always giving you corrections. And I find that once you've got a relatively high blood sugar, it takes quite a bit more to get it back down as opposed to getting ahead of it and making sure that it never gets high in the first place. It's significant when you actually really start to look at it. You know, if you can be a little bit more aggressive before you ever get an elevated blood sugar, you're just going to save so much insulin. Not that you need to save it, but it's nice to not have to take so much, because the other thing that I was noticing was that with increased insulin, I was putting on a little bit of weight because insulin is a storage hormone. And so I had more food in me and I had more that needed to be processed. And so taking more of the insulin, I was just adding more weight. So I really wanted to try to get more efficient with that. And so the first thing I did was I'm looking at my correction factors. Since I have like 4 separate correction factors, I have one that goes from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I have that as a 1 unit lowers it by 31 milligrams. Because over the night, I want to be aggressive, but not too aggressive, because that is the one point where I live alone and I want to be careful. But with that said, this 12 to 6 a.m. period previously, I believe I had it at 1 unit of insulin lowers glucose by 35 milligrams. And so it was significantly less aggressive. And so that's where some of that rise overnight was happening. Ever since I made that change, I've been way more stable at night. You know, when you wake up, I see a nice smooth line around 120, which is right where I'd like to be overnight. And so since it's staying there now, thanks to the correction factor, and it's never getting a chance to go high, I'm not then having to manually correct, and the system is not having to manually or provide automated corrections. And therefore, I'm waking up having used maybe 4 to 6 units of insulin since that 12 a.m. period, versus 8 and sometimes 10. So I'm starting off the day in a much better position. And I also find that when I sleep at a good blood sugar number, the rest of the day just seems to be a little bit easier. If I've had a rocky night, the next day can be more difficult. And so making sure that that nighttime number is a little bit better can be a tremendous help. Let's see, I'm just looking at my history again, or my bolus settings. So I got a little bit more aggressive with my insulin to carb ratio at night as well, because I noticed that I am more sensitive to insulin at night, and I had gotten a little bit scared of the lows that can sometimes come with that. But I got a little bit more confident, and I just increased it by 1 or 2 carbs, and that has prevented some of those nighttime highs as well. So I don't like to be in a position where I'm correcting and dealing with the high blood sugar or raising blood sugar as I get ready to go to sleep. I like it to be stable by that point. And increasing the strength of my dinner time insulin to carb ratio has really helped with that. So I think everybody's gonna have to play with these things on their own, but I would really just strongly suggest you make the lifestyle changes that I was talking about, or at least try them out, doing the exercise, getting the sleep, playing around with some supplements just to see how your body reacts in terms of inflammation. And then playing with your settings. So getting aggressive where appropriate, but not overly aggressive. Now, one of the things that I would say in terms of how you can tell when you're overly aggressive is, for me, it's pretty simple. It's, you know, do I have to save a potential low with glucose tablets, which is how I stop lows. And so if I know I have still a unit or even sometimes more than a unit on board, and I'm already at, let's say, 100, and I'm trending down, I'm going to have to correct with some glucose tablets. And if that trend continues over the course of a couple of days, when I've been putting in my carbs appropriately and really accounting for all other factors, and it's still needing a correction, that's where I would then weaken either the correction factor or the insulin to carb ratio, because you really don't, I mean, it's great to avoid a spike, but you absolutely don't want to be having to correct every single meal that you eat with glucose tablets or some sort of simple sugar. And so I think, you know, there's lots of official ways of testing your insulin to carb ratio and your correction factors depending on the time of day, and it can vary. But for me, it's very simple. Like if I have to correct or prevent a low via glucose tablets consistently, like let's say it's over 2 to 3 or 4 days, then I know I'm just being too aggressive and I need to back off. And so I've sort of dialed that in over the past couple of months. And now I have mine very finely tuned, where I rarely need glucose tablets to correct it, although I still always carry them. but it'll typically avoid a spike and it'll come back to a nice place within that 2-hour range. And so, yeah, hopefully this is helpful for anybody that's sort of struggling with the stability and either highs or lows. But again, these changes have really helped me have a more stable blood sugar while taking way less insulin over the past month. And so I just wanted to share that with some of you and see if it was helpful. So let me know. And if there's anything particular that you'd like to hear me talk about or review my experiences with, I'd be happy to do so.